You've been told pirates were drunk, diseased criminals who died young. So why did blacklisted pirate ships have lower death rates than Navy vessels with actual doctors? The answer got these techniques banned, and it's not what historians wanted you to believe. Pirates figured out something that took modern science centuries to confirm. When you're stuck on a ship with water barrels going green and slimy, you get creative. Real creative. These guys started mixing rum with seawater, and everyone thought they'd lost their minds. But here's the thing. They hadn't. The alcohol killed bacteria, causing dysentery and cholera. That alone saved more lives than any ship's doctor, and the rum masked that horrible bitter salt taste that makes seawater nearly impossible to choke down. Now, drinking straight seawater, that's a death sentence. Your kidneys work overtime trying to flush the salt, and you actually dehydrate faster. But pirates weren't drinking it straight. They were diluting it. Modern survival experts have confirmed that a 3-to-1 ratio of fresh water to seawater can extend your hydration without frying your kidneys. Below 3.5% salinity, your body can actually process it. The pirates nailed this ratio through pure trial and error. No labs, no scientists, just desperate men figuring out how not to die. So why did the Navy ban it? Simple. Drunk sailors make terrible fighters. They also fall overboard at alarming rates. Hard to win a naval battle when half your crew is swimming with the fishes because they got too friendly with the grog barrel. And speaking of grog, this trick essentially invented it. The British Navy eventually adopted rum rations officially in 1740. They basically stole the pirates' homework and called it regulation. My grandfather always said necessity is the mother of invention. Well, pirates had necessity by the throat daily, but drinking problems were just the start. What these guys did with fish eyeballs sounds absolutely disgusting, and it worked even better. Now, here's where things get genuinely disgusting, but also kind of brilliant. Pirates in the Caribbean would catch fish, gut them, and immediately pop the eyeballs into their mouths. Raw, no cooking, just crunch. The other sailors thought they were absolute savages. Ship doctors called it superstitious nonsense and told them to stop being so revolting. But here's what nobody understood at the time. Fish eyes are basically nature's multivitamins stuffed into a slimy little ball. A single tuna eyeball contains more vitamin A than an entire carrot. And vitamin A deficiency? That was destroying sailors left and right. Up to 50% of crews on long voyages developed something called sea blindness. Their night vision would go first. Then their eyes would dry out. Some went completely blind before reaching port. The pirates eating fish eyes, they could still see perfectly fine. And the benefits didn't stop at vision. The omega-3 fatty acids in those eyeballs kept their brains functioning and reduced inflammation throughout their bodies. The gelatinous fluid inside provided hydration too. So these guys were getting vitamins, brain food, and liquid from scraps that everyone else threw overboard. My grandmother used to say, "Waste not, want not." She never ate eyeballs, though. At least I hope not. Japanese fishermen still eat fish eyes today. It's considered a delicacy in many coastal cultures, but back in the 1700s, European doctors were too busy being grossed out to notice the results. The pirates who looked like barbarians were actually the healthiest men on the ship. Makes you wonder what else we dismiss just because it seems weird, right? Speaking of weird practices that turned out to be genius, the next one involves something even more personal than eating eyeballs. Here's where things get gross, and I mean genuinely disgusting. Pirates urinated on their wounds, jellyfish stings, rope burns, deep cuts. They just go for it. Other sailors thought this was absolutely barbaric. Ship doctors called it unsanitary madness. Turns out the pirates were onto something real. Fresh urine is actually sterile when it leaves your body. Zero bacteria. And it contains urea, which has genuine antibacterial properties. Hospitals used urea in wound care right up until penicillin came along in the 1940s. But what about jellyfish stings? You've probably heard that's a myth. Well, not entirely. The ammonia in slightly aged urine does neutralize certain jellyfish venom proteins. Not all species, but enough that pirates noticed it working. They weren't running lab tests. They just knew that when someone got stung and someone else, helped out, the pain decreased faster. And the really clever part? Pirates would soak cloth bandages in urine, then dry them completely in the sun. This created primitive antiseptic dressings they could store for emergencies. Weird Absolutely. Effective? More than anyone wanted to admit. During World War I, soldiers on battlefields without medical supplies did the exact same thing. No clean water, no antiseptic, no choice. They went back to the pirate method because it worked better than doing nothing. I'll be honest, if I'm ever stranded with an infected wound and zero medical supplies, am I proud enough to refuse this? Probably not. Pride doesn't heal gangrene. The practice got banned mostly because it offended the sensibilities of naval officers who had actual medicine available. Fair enough, but speaking of measuring things, pirates figured out their timekeeping methods were equally ingenious and potentially life-saving in ways you wouldn't expect. Here's where pirates got genuinely clever. Hourglasses were the standard timekeeping method at sea. Sand falls, flip it over, repeat. Simple, right? Well, not in the Caribbean. Humidity turned that sand into clumpy garbage within weeks. So pirates improvised with something they already had. Candles. They'd carve lines into tallow candles, each mark representing 1 hour. When the flame hit a line, shift change. 4 hours on watch, 4 hours sleeping. But the real genius wasn't the timekeeping part. See, that same candle was also keeping them alive. Below deck on a wooden ship, air gets stale fast. Dozens of men breathing in cramped quarters, no ventilation, hatches sealed during storms. Carbon dioxide builds up silently. You get drowsy, then confused, then dead. Pirates figured out that if the candle sputtered and died, the air had gone bad. Everyone woke up immediately. Get above deck or suffocate. One piece of technology doing two completely different jobs. That's honestly impressive engineering from guys who couldn't read. A standard tallow candle burned roughly 1 inch per hour, which made shift rotation surprisingly accurate. More accurate than a lot of modern alarm clocks, honestly. My uncle still sleeps through 3 of those every morning. And the weirdest part? This exact trick survived for centuries. Coal miners in the 1800s called their candles life indicators. Same principle. Flame dies. You run. No fancy equipment needed. Modern preppers have actually rediscovered this technique for underground shelters. Battery-powered carbon dioxide detectors fail eventually. Candles don't need batteries. But speaking of things pirates put in their bodies for survival purposes, the next one involves chewing something that ship captains absolutely refuse to let sailors touch, and it wasn't because of health concerns. All right, this one might make you uncomfortable, but stick with me because the science is wild. Pirates chewed raw tobacco leaves and swallowed the juice. Not for the buzz, for the worms, tapeworms, roundworms, hookworms. These parasites were everywhere in the 1700s. Contaminated water, undercooked meat, walking barefoot on tropical islands. One long voyage and half your crew had something living in their guts. The symptoms were brutal. Bloated bellies, constant fatigue, wasting away despite eating full rations. Sailors died looking like skeletons because parasites were stealing every nutrient they consumed. But here's what pirates figured out. Tobacco-chewing crewmen rarely got sick. Turns out nicotine is a powerful natural pesticide. When it hits a parasitic worm, the nicotine paralyzes their muscles. They literally can't hold on anymore. The worms release their grip on your intestinal walls and your body flushes them out naturally. Pretty clever, right? Veterinarians knew this worked for centuries. They used tobacco-based dewormers on horses, cattle, and sheep all the way until synthetic alternatives came around in the 1950s. Same principle, same results. Now, why would anyone ban something this useful? Money. That's why. Tobacco was expensive cargo, worth more per pound than most sailors earned in a year. Captains saw crewmen chewing their profits and shut it down immediately. The ban had nothing to do with health concerns, pure economics. And the dose actually matters here. A moderate tobacco chew delivers enough nicotine to stun parasites, but won't seriously poison an adult human. Pirates accidentally found the sweet spot between medicine and poison. The craziest part? Some tropical medicine researchers are now studying nicotine compounds for modern antiparasitic drugs. But parasites weren't the only invisible threat at sea. Infections killed even more sailors. And pirates had an answer for that too. Okay, this one sounds absolutely insane. Pirates would take black gunpowder, pack it directly into a deep wound, and then light it on fire. On purpose. I know what you're thinking. That's not medicine. That's torture. But here's the thing. It actually worked. The sulfur and potassium nitrate in gunpowder created an instant sterile char when ignited. Blood vessels sealed shut. Infection couldn't take hold. The wound closed faster than any stitching could manage. And remember, these guys didn't have clean water, surgical tools, or antibiotics. They had rum, rope, and whatever they could improvise. So when your buddy takes a cutlass to the arm and won't stop bleeding, you work with what's available. The wildest part? This wasn't just pirate craziness. Battlefield surgeons used the exact same technique through the American Civil War. Documented cases show soldiers surviving wounds that should have killed them, all because some doctor packed their injuries with gunpowder and struck a spark. Now here's why it got banned. Gunpowder belonged to the ship, military property. Using it to patch up some injured deckhand was technically stealing from the crown. Captains would rather let a sailor bleed out than waste precious ammunition on medical care. Priorities, right? You've probably heard stories about Blackbeard lighting fuses in his beard to look terrifying, but he also reportedly demonstrated this cauterization trick on himself. Most people assumed he was just showing off his pain tolerance. Turns out the man was actually performing emergency surgery. My grandfather used to say the old ways survived for a reason. He was talking about his mother's cooking, but honestly, same principle applies here. Speaking of old remedies that seem crazy until science proves them right, pirates also figured out something about moldy bread. Here's where pirates were literally 300 years ahead of modern medicine. They kept bread in the dampest, nastiest corners of the ship, on purpose. Not because they forgot about it, they wanted that fuzzy blue-green stuff growing all over it. Disgusting? Absolutely. But also genius. That mold was penicillium, the exact same fungus that Alexander Fleming got a Nobel Prize for discovering in 1928. Pirates were using it centuries earlier, and they learned it from African and Caribbean healers who'd known the secret for generations. The method was brutal but effective. Take the moldiest bread you can find, scrape off that blue-green fuzz, and pack it directly into an infected wound. Ship surgeons saw this and nearly had strokes. They threw away moldy bread as garbage, completely missing the antibiotic properties hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, pirates were curing infections that should have killed them. One captain's journal from 1714 describes something remarkable. Crewmen with early-stage gangrene recovered after moldy bread poultices. Gangrene, the thing that usually meant amputation or death. And the weird part? This wasn't even new knowledge. Ancient Egyptians used moldy bread on wounds 3,000 years before pirates sailed the Caribbean. The information was always there. Educated doctors just refused to believe something rotten could heal. Makes you wonder what else we're throwing away today. Modern survivalists now recognize bread mold as a legitimate emergency antibiotic source. Not ideal, obviously, but when pharmaceutical options aren't available, that fuzzy green stuff could save your life. Pirates trusted folk medicine over fancy doctors. They looked stupid for centuries. Turns out they were right, but if moldy bread sounds extreme, wait until you hear what pirates rubbed all over their skin. Shark liver oil. That's what pirates smeared all over their faces, arms, and necks before spending 12 hours under the Caribbean sun. Sounds disgusting, right? Like rubbing fish guts on yourself. Well, here's the thing. That greasy mess they were slathering on actually contained squalene, the exact same compound that luxury skincare brands now charge over $100 an ounce for. I'm not joking. Next time you see some fancy moisturizer bragging about marine-derived squalene, just know pirates were literally getting it for free from every shark they caught. The cosmetics industry really does just rebrand old pirate tricks with prettier packaging, but the sun protection was only half the story. Pirates figured out that shark oil waterproofed basically everything. Leather boots lasted months longer. Rope didn't rot as fast. Canvas sails stayed flexible instead of cracking in the salt air. One large shark liver could produce several gallons of this miracle oil. So every shark they caught, valuable way beyond just the meat. Makes sense from a survival standpoint, right? Navy officers didn't think so. They actually banned sailors from hunting sharks because it wasted time better spent on official duties. Meanwhile, their crews were getting sunburned so badly they couldn't work the deck. Brilliant management there. And the science backs all of this up completely. Squalene creates a protective lipid barrier on skin. It blocks UV damage. It locks in moisture. Modern dermatologists now recommend products containing it for exactly these reasons. Pirates discovered pharmaceutical-grade skincare 300 years early. They just had to smell like fish to get it. Speaking of weird pirate health practices, the next one involves hanging sailors by their ankles from ceiling beams. And no, it wasn't punishment. Here's where pirates basically invented physical therapy 300 years early. Sailors suffered constant headaches, brutal ones. The rocking ship messed with their inner ear, dehydration squeezed their brains, and sleeping in cramped hammocks compressed their spines night after night. Most guys just suffered through it, but some crews discovered something weird. They'd tie rope around their ankles, throw it over a beam, and hang upside down like bats for 5 to 10 minutes. And it worked. Now, ship officers absolutely hated this. A sailor dangling in a narrow passageway blocked everyone trying to move cargo or respond to emergencies. Worse, when port inspectors came aboard and saw men hanging by their feet, they assumed either torture or suicide attempts. Neither looked good for the captain's reputation. So the practice got banned on most naval vessels. But here's what those officers missed. Inversion therapy actually resets your vestibular system. That's the balance mechanism in your inner ear that goes haywire during rough seas. Flipping upside down essentially reboots it. I tried an inversion table at my cousin's house last year. Felt like my brain got a fresh oil change. The spine benefits matter too. Hanging inverted decompresses vertebrae by up to 25%. After months of sleeping in hammocks that curved your back like a shrimp, that relief was probably better than rum. And guess who uses this exact technique now? NASA. When astronauts return from zero gravity, their bodies struggle to readjust. Controlled inversion helps recalibrate everything. Same principle, just fancier equipment. Meanwhile, chiropractors charge serious money for inversion tables. Pirates figured it out with leftover rope and a sturdy beam. But hanging upside down seems almost normal compared to what's next. Because pirates also discovered the most disturbing hydration source imaginable. All right, this last one sounds absolutely disgusting, but it might be the most impressive survival hack on the entire list. Pirates captured sea turtles and kept them alive in the ship's hold. Not just for meat, they drank their blood. Fresh, straight from the source. Before you gag, here's why this was actually brilliant. Turtle blood is isotonic. That's a fancy way of saying it matches human blood salinity almost perfectly. So unlike seawater, which destroys your kidneys, turtle blood actually hydrates you. Your body accepts it like it's getting a weird warm sports drink. One large sea turtle could provide up to 2 gallons of drinkable blood, plus weeks of fresh meat that stayed good because the turtle was still alive until they needed it. It's like having a walking refrigerator that also dispenses emergency fluids. And the nutritional profile? Protein, iron, essential salts, everything that prevents the muscle wasting that killed sailors on extended voyages. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated survival. Colonial governments eventually banned killing sea turtles in port towns. Not because they cared about animal welfare, they were worried pirates, and Navy ships would hunt them to extinction. That's how valuable this trick was. Here's what's wild. Modern survival instructor Cody London has demonstrated this principle on camera. Animal blood remains one of the most efficient emergency hydration sources known to science. The pirates weren't savages. They were ahead of the curve by about 300 years. So, there you have it. 10 pirate survival tricks that got banned, mocked, or forgotten. And every single one turned out to be backed by actual science. Sometimes the guys with eye patches and wooden legs knew more about staying alive than the doctors with fancy degrees.